on this episode of Menstruction.
What helped me get out of that headspace is not only realizing that loop you find yourself in, but realizing when you reach the point of success that you plan to reach, what are you going to do in your free time then? Of course, you try to enjoy it, but it then becomes a matter of, yes, I could be doing some productive, but I've worked hard enough to have this free time to myself. That's still you find yourself in that headspace, in that sense of, man, I could be doing something productive. Man, I could be hustling right now. Mm-hmm. As you said, at this age, we should be doing that.
It was a brick by brick and a stone by stone. Rome wasn't built in a day, it wasn't done alone. See, your spirit is the merit and the mind is the home. It takes a whole village to get a child out this home, yes. To be a great man without good instructions, a surefire way to lead a life of destruction. Let's be honest, sit down and tune in. Put an hour of your life into some instruction.
Greetings, salutations, my beautiful souls and spirits. Thank you. Coming through your airwaves right now is Black Velvet, and this is Menstruction, the place where we provide the beneficial bricks to fortify the structure that is you incorporated. So before we kick it off, this is another episode on the go. Quality might not be the peak of perfection, but we're trying out new things. And so today, I am lucky to have a guest here today to help me make sure that I'm giving you quality content. With that, I would like to usher into the microphone and into the building space. That's what we're going to call this now.
The building space.
A long time friend of mine, and honestly a brother, Alexander Abner. Talk to the people.
Yo, what's happening, people? This is Alex. How y'all doing today? Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to the topic we got to discuss. It is something that comes to mind from time to time. I'm ready to get into it.
I love it. And I am so glad to get you on the platform. I know this conversation won't be anything out of your wheelhouse because it's something that we discuss all the time. And so I just wanted to get it on the platform, have it on record, but also be able to share it with the people. At this point, they're like, what is it? What are they talking about? We're going to get into it. I like to let every guest in the building space introduce themselves, tell the people a little bit about yourselves and why you are poised to be on the platform.
Well, yeah, my name's Alex, obviously. I'm 21. I am going to college right now for graphic design. Wish me luck, y'all. Just happy to be here because honestly, my friend here, I admire that he's discussing a lot of these topics. I mean, yes, I feel like people, some of these topics are covered pretty well, but not to the amount of detail I would say that we discuss here. So that's why I'm really looking forward to this discussion today.
I love it. Let's just get right into it. A change that I've been trying to make, focusing and making a more earnest, comprehensive effort to manage my finances, and specifically just the monitoring process of knowing where each and every dollar goes and being able to track the dollars that are coming in. On an introductory level, that process can seem almost futile because you're not fully self-sufficient, you're not fully independent, so it's not like sometimes you can feel like you don't have to cover those things so intensely, because you have, you still have someone that's supporting you to a degree, but you still do, and I definitely do, have financial obligations. And they're consistent ones. They're things that I need to cover. They are, as we all know them, the typical bills. I have bills too. I have things that I have to cover. And so now that I've been doing that for a couple of years, now I'm at a point where I really want to make a more earnest effort to track where money is going, because you start to, especially when you start doing your own taxes, which I've been doing my own taxes for a couple of years, it gives you a nice comprehensive layout of your income for the year. That process is always very enlightening to me. And as an aside, for any of you young men that are working and have, consistent income, if you do not do your own taxes, or when I say do, I mean file. If you do not file your own taxes, I strongly recommend you do so. Just so as an exercise in being able to evaluate and assess your income and your finances overall, because again, it's a very comprehensive layout essentially of all the money you've made throughout the year and where it came from and what form it came and how much of it actually went into your pocket, because obviously you're filing the tax portion, which is talking about the money that you don't necessarily see. That in doing that, it's always very enlightening to me for all of those reasons, but also because then I have this moment for myself in my mind where I think back and I'm like,
man, I made that much money this year?
Right? And then I think back and I'm like,
why do I have nothing to show for it?
I still have, less than $5,000 to my name. So I look at all of that and it's like, well, geez, like where's all that money gone? And not to say that it's been spent frivolously, but for the most part, it just seems like there should be more left over at the end of it. It has interested me in looking into the process and procedure of how my money moves. And that is essentially the basis of money management. Realistically, I now am taking an earnest effort in making a budget. Where I want to go with this conversation today, not just the importance of being able to track how your money moves from an early age as a young man before you're thrust out there and really have to get after it yourself, but also what are some of the effects of that, positive and negative. Alex, where we can start with it is, I know obviously you in many ways were kind of thrust into the situation and forced to accept a lot of those responsibilities on your own. And I know that we have had numerous conversations over the years about the adjustments you've had to make and the things that you've learned in the process to be able to do that. You have your own place, you have your own vehicle, and all the other expenses that come with that. And so you, in many ways, you kind of took the speed route. You went lightning round, and now you went from, I was in the space that most of us are where, you're semi-independent and someone's still kind of supporting you, to suddenly,
nice Porsche. Gotcha, bitch.
There is no support. Every dollar I have has to be tracked and is going somewhere else.
Right.
And it is usually earmarked before you even really get to put your hands on it.
Yep. So
Can you give a little background about that and how that process has gone for you so far?
Well, so far, I've maintained, but it is it's difficult to do that when you. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily it's difficult. If I'm being honest, I have to commend anyone who is brave enough to work in the fast food industry, especially. Well, I would say maybe a few years back, minimum wage increase now, but I just commend anyone brave enough to work in circumstances that aren't necessarily consumer friendly. I guess that's the best term to say. Because it honestly, for me, it's just difficult to work somewhere where you can't have, you rule stricken, and you just really don't have the freedom schedule wise, because you gotta rack that money to keep yourself afloat. And not only that, it's just frustrating, it's draining. You don't have a lot of free time to yourself, and you sometimes just don't even enjoy the job. And it's even worse when you work somewhere where the atmosphere isn't all that, and the people around you don't enjoy the job. So then it's just you're just surrounded with negativity and just frustration. So, but besides that, as far as how it's been going, I managed. That's all we can do, right? We all trying to get somewhere. But yeah, for the most part, I've had to make a lot of abrupt changes to my lifestyle as far as like expenses. Obviously now, yes, I have to track my expenses a little bit better than what I would previously been doing. And when doing that, when trying to adjust to sudden changes and having to have a steady source of income in order to maintain yourself, when it's difficult, when you do come to a point where you may lose your job or you start to try to look for another.
Yeah.
So in that process, it's a whole nother story. I've been job to job, I'll say, but the work don't stop.
I hear that. So one of the difficulties that I know that exists, especially again being in the kind of position that you are, and I'm sure there are tons of young men that are in your position, if not worse. You find yourself in a position where you feel like you have to be on grind time 100% of the time, not because you enjoy the productivity, not because you want to and because you have the time to, even though that's true, but the primary focus is I need paper.
Exactly.
I have to accumulate X amount of dollars just to be able to cover X amount of expenses.
Exactly.
And as you pointed out, things aren't, economically speaking, although I don't want to turn this into an economic conversation, but on that front, things aren't, depending on what kind of work you're doing. If we're talking entry level work, things haven't necessarily caught up and evened out to a point where it is feasible to work the standard full-time 40-hour work week and be able to cover your expenses. And so what tends to happen is if you want to go into a specialized field, or if you're trying to just have an entry-level job to make ends meet until you get to what your passion is, then you have to put extra time in at that place. And it's a place that you don't enjoy working and you don't want to work at. And that, in a lot of cases, is not providing anything for you.
Right.
It's not giving you any benefits. It's not giving you any major applicable skills. It's just a means to an end.
Exactly.
Or you go the other route where you have to take a job that is higher paying, but it's something that requires a lot more and grinds you down a lot more. So that's like, your warehouse workers, your truck drivers, especially if you live in the South. We're talking like shipyards, dockyards, that kind of thing. Things that can be very dangerous, honestly, and put you in a line of danger where you're putting your life on the line a lot of times for more pay than what's the average, but not enough to justify the risks.
Exactly. So another thing too, I don't know what the job status is in other states. Alabama being not the greatest job wise. More recently, I would say we've gotten better job wise, but there was a point where it is I would like, if I could improve on the economy in any means, I wish there was more jobs that were willing to pay you throughout training and were actually willing to train you for higher non-entry level jobs. And that's something you really just don't see a lot down here, which is unfortunate. But I feel like people are more than willing to put the time in. It's just it's difficult to invest time into training for a job when you're still not getting paid, and you have to come into said job.
Right.
So that's another thing. It's like I've had a few jobs that do pay you during training, but it's those kind of jobs where you get such and such amount until you can start, or until you improve or learn certain skills and stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, that's another kind of barrier, I guess, you run into job wise.
Absolutely. And I like the word that you use, barrier, because my next question to you was going to be, what kind of an obstacle have you seen, and would you say even for young men like ourselves does that provide when when you don't have the best options job wise, and you now have to go through this rigorous training process that's not paying you anything?
Well, I have been fortunate enough to have sort of side incomes in times where I may be without a job, or just income kind of slow. But in situations like that, it just become hustle mode, because so for example, you met my papa. We do landscaping weekends or whenever we can, just for extra money. Temp jobs. Oh boy, don't get me started on temp jobs. Whew, that's But yeah, in situations like that, it becomes just hustle, survival mode.
Yeah.
But really, I don't know. I've gotten to a point now where I try to not necessarily overlook the more stressful aspects of finding yourself in jobs that you may not enjoy all that much, but to rather just kind of see it as another stepping stone towards where you're trying to be. You won't be there forever.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that is a key consideration to have when you're talking about something like hustle mode, like you said. Can you define what hustle mode is and why it's important? I know that's your wheelhouse.
Yes, sir.
I know hustle mode is default for you.
Boy, so hustle mode is where any amount of time you have, that's work time. And with that being said,
even when you clock out, you still ain't clocked out.
Yeah, nah. So there was a point where I would hit up Papa on a Saturday to landscape, hit up Uncle Dion on a Sunday doing roofing and flooring, hit up DoorDash for the week.
Right.
And then still be doing like some commission drawings on like in my free time. So right. Hustle mode is a consistent grind. It's where you need to eat.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hustle mode is something I think everyone can identify with, and it's something that a lot of us, especially in this phase in our lives, become very familiar with. My perspective on it, I feel like hustle mode should be the standard. I feel like, how many times have I said this to you, that I feel like at this time, your 20s really, you should be grinding it out as hard as possible. Because you have the least amount of obstacles.
Right.
To really get after whatever you want to get after. For the most part, if you've done things the ideal way, the way you should do them, you don't have any children, you don't really have a significant other to worry about, you don't have any major outstanding financial obligations, like, you don't have a home, you don't have, hopefully you're not, pushing some expensive vehicle, you got your bills. If you go the college route, we'll get to that in a second. If you do move out your parents' place, you might have your own little place somewhere, you paid for that, and you got yourself a whip, hopefully, something, again, you don't have the freshest, cleanest, just something that'll get you to and fro,
right? And
you have that covered. That's it. You have the freedom and honestly the opportunity to take a lot of risks. And I am under the impression that you should take those risks, because in taking those risks, that's where you put yourself out there and you're experiencing things that are going to facilitate your growth. And you're doing things that if you fall, you're not going to damage other lives in the process.
Right.
If you fall, you're not falling that far because you were pretty close to the bottom anyways. And so you can just brush it off and get back in the game.
Exactly.
Because there aren't that many strings attached.
Right.
So
That's a good way to put it.
right. I think hustle mode is crucial and is important, but one of the barriers that comes with hustle mode and one of the detriments of hustle mode is lack of opportunity.
That too.
Because just as I was saying, it is crucial to take risks in your hustle mode. You can't take certain risks if the opportunity doesn't present itself.
Right.
And if you get to a point where you feel like things have become very monotonous and you run into that cycle, kind of like you were saying, if you are in a position where you need paper like that, and so you got, I got to talk to Uncle Bobby on Saturday to get me this job. And then I got to go to Auntie Diane on Sunday and see if she needs some help around the house.
Right.
And then during the week, I'm trying to hit up, Jeffrey and John and see if they want to buy some PlayStation games so I can make a couple extra dollars over here. And then you got a main job that you're working throughout the week. You get burnt out.
Oh, yeah.
And you get to a point where it's, you get frustrated, you get tired, and you get annoyed. And what happens and where it becomes a real issue, and I've seen this happen a lot, you get discouraged. And you get disillusioned. And you get to a point where like, what's the point?
Right.
Why am I doing all this? Why am I making these strides? Why am I pushing this hard? Why do I need to do this? Because you get caught up in that short-sighted vision of how things go, and you're like, this is how it's gonna go because it's been like this for a minute,
Right.
and there have been no changes. And one of the reasons that occurs, I feel, is you don't have good opportunity. If you don't have good opportunity presented to you, there's no tangible growth.
Right.
You don't see any tangible changes. It does very much so flatten out. And you feel like, okay, I've done this, and what do I have to show for it?
Right.
I have the same struggles. I got the same difficulties. I'm making the same amount of money.
So, okay. Well, with that being said, explain to the people how or what you can do to increase opportunities. As you said, just something along the lines of taking risks.
Absolutely. I think one of the main things you pointed out very well, environment is very important. And just finished recording an episode talking about the importance of your environment. If you haven't listened to that, please go listen to that. But if it's out already, if not, then sorry. But a main part of it is your environment, right? And I'm addressing this first because I know some of you are like, yeah, well, I can't change that. Which, okay, to a degree, that's true. If you're in a place like like you were saying, where there's just the way that the economy is set up and the social structure is, you have certain opportunities that exist and there are certain ones that don't. Mm-hmm. And so in that situation, if you're in that position, there's not much you can do other than leave. Like, you have to physically move yourself out of that. So that is a solution. I know that's not the most tangible solution, but that's one solution. You move yourself into a more conducive environment. What you can do more immediately is two things. And you and I have had numerous conversations about this too. Developing your skill set. Mm-hmm. Developing your skill set is crucial. And this is if you're in an environment that has a lot of those opportunities or not. Because that makes you more viable. It brings more opportunities to you because you're more flexible. There are more things you can do. You diversify your skill set. So it's like, I was going to make a sports reference, but I don't know sports well enough. It's like, okay, a better example. It's like that one student, that one classmate that we've all had at some point, where they're kind of beloved by every teacher, administrator, everything like that. Because when it comes to most subjects or areas of study, they excel. And they're rounded like that, right? They work on, the mathematics side of things. They work on English literature side of things. They work on history things. So they're, when someone needs help, they tend to get referred to that person because that person has a skill set in all of those subject areas.
Right.
And so that's your preferred individual. And that person then not only seeks favor from those who need their help, they seek favor from those who also provide help. And what happens for those people? Those are usually the people you see get the opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. They get the grants, the scholarships, they get the letters of recommendation.
That's true.
Right? So what did they do? They diversified their skill set. They proved that I am versatile and thus I would be a worthy investment for these opportunities.
Right.
And that's where I see where I feel like a lot of us either miss it or just don't understand. We try to go a conventional route one way or the other, whether that be go the collegiate route, which is, we're going to get to that in a second, or you go, you do the high school thing, you go into the workforce, whatever, and then you try to follow a trade. Mm-hmm. But let's say you get to a point where you follow a trade and you decide that's not the one for you.
Right. And
so now your trajectory is messed up. It's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's next. And so you get disillusioned and you get stuck in that cycle of, I got to do entry-level job to entry-level job to entry-level job to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. But you hate all of it. And you're like, well, damn, where the opportunities at? I want to do something different.
Right.
And you can't because you're not working on developing your skill set.
Exactly.
So that's to me, those are the two major ways that you enhance that. How you can change that for yourself. Your environment is crucial because connections, it's your network, not your net worth. That's important. And then being able to have the skills to justify and honestly invite those opportunities is crucial. And we miss that. We miss that so very often, and we don't put effort into it. Some of us get caught in this mindset of once you leave school, you stop learning, or you stop having to put that kind of effort into things. Just to clarify too, what I mean by diversify your skills, if you skip the college route and you decide to go straight into work or, whatever, figure something out, start your own business. Well, okay, let's use that as an example. Let's say you want to start your own business. You could work on learning accounting. So when it comes to you're making money and you have to worry about revenue, cost of operation, your expenses, what's coming out, what's going in. At some point, that's a crucial part of your business. If anything, that's the most crucial part of your business. Indeed. And you're going to have to bring somebody in to do that. But starting off, you're not going to have the resources for that. So teach yourself a little bit of accounting. Business acumen. You need to learn marketing. You got to produce. You have to advertise your business, your products, whatever it is. So you learn a little bit of marketing. Right? Those are skills, though. While you're learning that for your business, those are also marketable skills. Mm-hmm. Those are things you can take and use to create new opportunities for yourself. What else can you do? You can learn specified things, maybe some graphic design like you're doing, where you can create a website, right? Mm-hmm. Make some ads, make something unique to advertise your business, right? That's how you accrue and enhance your skill set. It's not this super, elusive, complex thing where it's like, I got to take a class and I got to go through a training program. Depending on the skill, maybe you do. If you want to be an insurance adjuster, you're going to have to take a certain course for that. But there are a lot of things where you can develop the skills just by getting into the knowledge. You don't have to take a course and pay for something. You can get a book. You can get a handful of books. Skillshare is a thing.
Oh yeah.
That I'm sure plenty of people hear about, and I personally use. Very helpful.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, right. Not yet. But things like Skillshare and those kinds of things where there are literally even the masterclass program, which is its own thing, but where there are specified areas of knowledge where you can go and learn on your own.
Exactly.
You learn at your own pace, right? So that's how you enhance that for yourself. Then you turn that opportunity into dollars, because that's again what you're trying to get back to, not letting your finances dictate your identity, not letting that be the main factor in how you move and how you develop. What are your thoughts on that? What are you?
Good point. A situation where you may find that you are limited in the things that you can do, due to your financial situation. That's usually the time you just want to kind of sit down and evaluate, your next step as best as possible. Some opportunities may take time to present themselves, but it's all about work ethic. But with that being said, I know there do come times in certain situations where you may have to kind of take a few steps backwards before you do move forward.
And when you say taking steps back to move forward, what does that look like? What do you mean by that? Because I think that's important too.
So, for example, say for you for example, you starting a podcast.
Yeah.
There may have been a time where you're just like, man, I need this. Like, okay, I need a microphone before I can officially start doing YouTube.
Of course.
So, if you want it's easy to get a quality microphone, but if you don't have the money for it, it's just some, a minor setback until you can, get what you can get and get going.
Yeah.
So in that situation, you wouldn't necessarily, you could start. You can't always just start, but in that situation is what I mean by you can't really get your foot exactly in the door to where you want until you get what you got to get. It's just small circumstances like that. As far as financial situations and frustrations and stuff like that, I wouldn't say it's frustrating anymore to me, because you will start to notice that as you said, opportunities do present themselves in some form or fashion, and I've had way better jobs way better jobs since I first moved in, and I can't help but be happy about it. I've gotten myself in a better headspace and in a better position to kind of start working harder towards something I really would like to do. Once you figure out what it is you like, you just work towards it.
Okay, can we dive into that, because I like that last point you made, because what does happen often, and I know that you had this challenge as well, is again getting caught in that cycle of having to work to survive, work to, going into hustle mode as hard as possible because it's a matter of survival and it's circumstantial. It then gets to a point where you feel that you can be worthless. It's hard to create, it's hard to be creative. It's hard to have vision because you're stuck in that rut. You're stuck in that cycle. Right. So you get to a headspace where you're disillusioned and discouraged.
Right.
And I know that that's a space that you found yourself in. You saying that you now are transitioning out of that headspace. Talk about that. How did that change occur, and what difference has that made for you?
That's a very good question. So I would like to say that change has come with a lot of different things, honestly. But I would say friends and family helped get me out of that mindset. Just watching the people around me develop. Sometimes it gets to a point to where you may you will always have at least one admirable person in your life where you can look on to and just be like, man, I'm trying to get like that at some point. You just have to keep that in mind. You got to keep in mind that where you want to be is not an impossibility. So as far as for me to help me get myself out of that headspace, I thought more about the people around me, and in my mind, it comes to be a little bit selfish personally if you get to a point where you have to rely on people, because, well, it's okay if you just need help, and they're willing to look out. You always got people that's willing to look out for you,
And you're always gonna need assistance.
but when you become reliant, you're being selfish, and not regarding the fact that the people around you may be going through similar circumstances or may have their own shit to worry about. And I didn't want to fall into that rut. Not only that, being an older brother, I got 3 younger sisters. Being an older brother, me having to be more of a, not necessarily parental figure, sort of to say. I just kind of want to lead by example for my sisters, because my oldest sister just went to the military, and she is now living on her own. And she called me from time to time, and I can tell that transition for her is also, it's weighing on her a little bit. It gets difficult. So, having some form of experience with that change is, it's just beneficial. But as far as what helped me get out of the headspace, this is what comes to mind for me when I find myself frustrated or depressed, when I'm just stuck. I know you've been in this situation before. You employed, or maybe you unemployed. You sitting at home, you chilling, and you're like, damn, I could be being productive right now. Right now, I could be doing something to better my future right now.
Could be.
And then you get up.
Most of us could be.
Yeah,
and should be.
You get up, you either find something productive to do that may or may not have benefited you, or you just find that you wasted your time trying to do something. If you fail to do something productive within that time, then you get frustrated, and you find yourself sitting back in that same spot you were. So,
did you come to that realization?
Well, yes.
During that time where you were in that headspace?
Yes. What helped me get out of that headspace is not only realizing that loop you find yourself in, but realizing when you reach the point of success that you plan to reach, what are you going to do in your free time then? Of course, you try to enjoy it, but it then becomes a matter of, yes, I could be doing some productive, but I've worked hard enough to have this free time to myself. That's still you find yourself in that headspace, in that sense of, man, I could be doing something productive. Man, I could be hustling right now. As you said, at this age, we should be doing that. But for me personally, I find it much more motivating to not stress about things that may be outside of your control. In a situation where, yes, you may find yourself kind of stuck financially, you could be doing better, opportunities ain't really presenting themselves right now, don't stress. Don't dwell on that. Just find you something that you can do, maybe not necessarily productively, but something that can help you build motivation and build a drive within you to get outside of that headspace.
Yeah.
You have people around you that always, willing to communicate with you about certain things.
Yes.
You just gotta kind of try to bring yourself out of it.
And that's important too. Your community, your personal circle. Those people that you keep around you, that keep you accountable, and that actually check in and make sure that you're moving in the direction you need to move in. I think that is a huge part of helping differentiate and also just keep things in perspective when you get to that point of monotony, when you get to that point of disillusionment, and you realize this, for me, is not where I want to be. You need the right kind of people around you to differentiate that perspective. What I have seen too, and what does happen, and I'm curious if you've seen this as well, is you'll get a group of guys and they all feel that to some degree or another, and they use that and they coalesce. And I call it trauma bonding. Where
Trauma bonding.
people, they all come together and they're like,
Oh yeah, our existence sucks. So my financial state sucks. I can't talk to chicks because I don't have the confidence to talk to them, and I don't feel like I have enough money to approach them.
Yeah.
you know, and that's what bonds them together. That is detrimental for everybody.
Yeah, that-
Because then you're in a space where now we're accepting that, but not only that, we're wallowing in it. You're ruminating. You're at a point where this is a problem and I am losing motivation and I am losing the vision, but I'm okay. I think it's okay because I'm not the only one. And I'm surrounded with people who validate it. And that's the main point. It's crucial to have the right people around you because validation comes in groups. Validation comes from the outside. Of course, there's internal validation, but honestly, I think validation is a fraction. There's a part of it that's personal, but I feel like no matter which kind of validation it is, there will always be a component that's external. And when you have people around you that are trauma bonding with you through the things that you're not satisfied with, going through the same struggles that you are, but you're not holding each other accountable and motivating each other to go beyond that, that keeps you stuck.
Yeah.
That keeps you
down.
stuck there.
I have I have experienced that personally.
And what did you see? What came out of that? Were there people in the group that suffered because of it? Did you suffer because of that? Because I would assume nothing positive came out of that situation.
It wasn't nothing positive, but it wasn't necessarily nothing negative either. For me, it was a little bit of relief to know that, it just kind of sucks right now. But at the same time, I had to kind of recognize that that's just not where I wanted to be. Because in doing that, you find that you get kind of lazy and you don't want to fall into that rut. Then you really start to fall behind in places or in areas that you just don't need to at that moment. So when you find yourself in them circumstances, it's best to you have to first recognize that you're in that circumstance.
Right.
And
be able to separate yourself.
Yeah, but not just that. Then just sit down and see what it is you could be doing to get out of that circumstance.
That personal evaluation.
Exactly. Another thing, that's probably around the time you were doing the yearly evaluations.
Yes.
So it helps, whether you know it or not. It just helps, just maybe a little bit. Just kind of sit down.
Talk about that a little bit too. Just give a background on what that is.
So my friend here does this yearly evaluation where he just kind of breaks down, or he doesn't break it down. He sets it in a format to where you break it down for yourself personally. So when you answer the questions on a document, you're basically asking yourself them and providing yourself with your own answers. So when he do the interviews, he ain't got to take that back. Like, I'm just but for the most part, it's just a way to, if you can recognize and know yourself. That's another thing. You have to get familiar with yourself so that you can know your strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely.
So writing down those strengths and weaknesses will definitely help. Not just that, write out what it is you're motivated to do, where it is you see yourself in the next few years, what's keeping you from being there, and what you can do to get there.
Absolutely.
Not to change subject so abruptly.
Yeah. Well, I just to clarify too, one of the main purposes behind the evaluations, the simplest way I can put it is to create a roadmap for success for yourself. To be able to, because I'm a visual thinker, so I look at it as, when you go on a road trip, you map out your route. You know where your starting destination is, and you know where your end destination is.
Right.
And if you go into an app like a Google Maps, it tells you what the distance between those two locations is. You get multiple options for routes. You can go whichever route you want to take to get there. The key is, the objective is, though, you're going to get from your starting location to your end destination.
But
You can take whatever route you want to take to get there.
You have to drive.
Yeah, right, that's part of it. You have to actually take the journey, but the evaluation is there to act as the points along that route. Those are, the interstates you're taking, the turns you're making, the roads, pit stops, whatever. The evaluation is to help map that out. So you can pick the best route for yourself, because everyone wants to take the most efficient route, the quickest route to get from point A to point B, unless you're taking a scenic trip. But in this case, you want to take the most efficient route, the best one that's going to get you where you need to go the quickest in the right way. And so you need to know what obstacles exist. Are there mountain roads? Are we going through any desert? Is there going to be a stretch where we're not going to have a gas station? Those are the kinds of things you want to know. And that's the same thing with your evaluation. Like you said, what are your strengths, your personal weaknesses? What are your objectives? Where are you trying to go? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself now? Why do you see yourself that way? What difference does that make? And so that's just a little background on the evaluation. I'll cover that in its entirety in another episode as well. But you had a point you wanted to make.
It was just in regards as to how your financial circumstances are usually your main reason behind your mental health.
Break that down. 'Cause that's exactly where I want to go. Absolutely.
It's unfortunate, but that's just society right now. But I come to learn that it's not all that sweet for rich people either. To some degree.
Why is that?
Why
do you think that is?
I've had the luxury of meeting a lot of, I guess, higher class people, and a lot of people don't factor in some of the things that some rich people, I can't speak for everybody, I don't know a lot of rich people, but a lot of people miss or overlook some of the smaller factors that go into why that person is rich. And at the end of the day, you don't necessarily know what they do with their money. For all you know, they could be donating to charities every week, but you won't see that. But not just that, I get kind of disappointed when I hear the claim that the rich get richer, the poor get poor, and it has its truth to it, but at the same time, it is simply a matter of hard work. To some degree, I would say it is a matter of hard work. For what I've taken from the people that I've met, it is strictly they have a routine, they had a plan, and they worked towards it as diligently and as hard as they could.
And so what's the mental health connection with that?
The more wealthy people I do meet aren't in the best mental conditions either. And whether that just be them being lonely, or by them being rich, they now find themselves in a position to where they have to maintain that wealth. And that's something people don't think about. If you are...
That's a job in and of itself.
Exactly. If you're wealthy and you have a big house, nice car, the whole nine, family, all that, you're now not only a caregiver and or provider, but if you have a very specific skill, you can only work under the umbrella of what it is that gave you that wealth. Meaning, if you lose that job, you now have to settle for things outside of your skill range, or you have to learn something new to maintain that wealth once more, or do something
expanding your skill set.
Exactly. You have to now work harder to make sure that you keep that wealth.
Absolutely.
Because when you lose it, then you just shit out of luck.
You have all those obligations.
Exactly.
You now do have those strings attached. If you fall, there are other people's lives on the line.
Exactly. And that's another thing in regards to mental health, that could weigh on a person heavily, because you have to be concerned with yourself. your family, wife, co-workers if you're in a managerial position.
Yeah.
When you find yourself in that position, then it becomes a matter of, oh man, I can't fall.
Yeah. I think that's where, because I agree with everything you're saying, and I think that's absolutely right. There is that burden of responsibility that falls on you where it becomes intense. Take that and scale it all the way back.
Ooh, yeah.
To someone who's in our position, who's 20-something, who has no credit references, who has entry-level work open to them, who have, whether you went the collegiate route or you didn't, you don't really have that much experience and connection, and you got to deal with all of that. Let's say this isn't everybody, but there are some of us that have kids. At this point. So you have a family to take care of. You have, let's say that you decided to, worst case scenario, you got kicked out. So now you had to find a place on your own. You have to do that. So now you have to worry about your living expenses that you have to cover. You need transportation. You have a kid. So you got to worry about getting your vehicle. Make sure that that's maintained properly so it can move and go where it needs to go. You have all of those things now that, like, all of those same responsibilities, but now you have to do all that without that level of financial assistance or security. You don't even have that. You're working minimum wage work. You're doing side job. Your side hustle got a side hustle. And that's how you're living. That absolutely takes a major toll on your mental health. I've seen that. And that's a lot of what we're dealing with. The young men in our peer group, and I think this is something that really needs to be covered in an episode in itself. All of these anxiety and depressive disorders that we're all dealing with now, because there's this pressure.
Right.
There's all this pressure to be the best you and, handle all these things and be a man, whatever that's supposed to mean nowadays. And it's so much. You don't have the resources and you don't have the wherewithal to deal with it. You don't have the references and you don't have the experience to put that on your back.
Right.
And then you also don't have enough examples of people to demonstrate how that works. This is a point that I want to address too, about keeping things moving in rotation and how, being able to interact with other people creates that perspective, because it's about fulfillment. Fulfillment is a big part of that, where you feel that you're in that disillusioned, discouraged place because you feel unfulfilled. And that entry level work and that bouncing back and forth and I have to do this just so I can make it is very unfulfilling.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the connection between what you pointed out, and I love that you brought that point into it, where even with people who have the financial part settled, they're still unfulfilled. They have, they're making six figures. They got, whatever house in the great neighborhood, 2 cars in the garage, all of that. And they're still having those because they're unfulfilled. And it comes down to there's this intertwining of financial status and identity for men, for us specifically. There's this connection made where you have to have both of those things placed in tandem, right? These are the things that we have to keep in order for us to be the best men that we can be. In order for us to achieve that the way we have to achieve, you have to make sure you get a certain amount of income, and then that makes you the man. And if you don't have that, then you not only do you have to deal with those stresses and people are going to judge you, but you also don't have the money. You don't have the financial security. And so with those things being so heavily intertwined, what happens? Like we were just talking about, you get in that grind mindset. And you push that, and you push that, and you pump that, and you do it, and let's say it works out, it pans out, and you make it, and you hit it big, and you're making your 6 figures. But then you get to that situation, like you said, where you're there, and you still are unfulfilled. You still are at a point where you are not settled mentally.
Right.
You have not established in your heart what's good for you. You've established a place financially. You moved up a few tax brackets, sure. But you still feel unfulfilled. And that's major.
That's a good point. As far as that, in terms of a person of lower financial status and mental health, I found that it then becomes a matter of finding your passion and just pushing towards that as best as possible.
Finding your purpose.
Yes, finding a purpose. And
so let me ask you this question. Do you think that there is a direct connection between a man's purpose and his identity? And what's that connection?
As far as your purpose and what you're passionate about, that will not only be something that you find will consistently interest you and be something that you know you can do happily despite whatever stresses may come with it. If you can stay up all night doing whatever it is that makes you happy, that's what your purpose or passion is. And as far as identity, that purpose or passion will be what helps identify you as a person.
Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely.
I take this example. Back in high school,
Back in high school, you used to bust it to the dance?
I did that too. But back in high school, as you know, I was drawing a lot.
Yeah.
I love Dragon Ball Z to death. And that's because that was my passion. I love Dragon Ball Z. So I met this one dude, and he saw me drawing one day, and he was like, "Oh snap!" He was like, "You like Dragon Ball?" And we had a conversation and whatnot. The days following that, every time I had saw him prior to that, he would call me Goku.
Me, Goku! Me, Goku! It's me, Goku!
And that then became my identity. Sorta. That's what I identify myself with. Yeah. People admire what it is that I'm doing because I'm putting a lot of passion into what it is that I'm doing.
And you took pride in that work.
I did. And I took pride in that name.
Yeah. I love that example. That is so perfect because that's exactly how it's supposed to work. When you put that level of dedication and pride into your work, you're proud of what you stand for. That then becomes a part of your identity. You stand for that. But that's the key. It takes work and consistency to develop that purpose, to learn what that purpose is.
Right.
Because that's a journey in itself.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that example.
Well, thank you. To the point of mental health, though, as far as mental health goes, when it comes to our people of poverty gang, 2022.
Hashtag?
Yeah. You will reach a point where you find yourself at a low point.
Absolutely.
And that's for anybody.
Absolutely.
So just know that what you're going through isn't that invalidated just because somebody else is also going through that. But know that it won't be that way forever. I'll have another example. I have never been a person who is shy of taking risk if it means it will benefit my mental health. And a lot of people get on my ass about it. Sometimes it is well deserved. It's simply to get out of a bad space. But my mom, very hardworking woman, she used to work for the fire department, and the fire department paid good, and I could tell because we ate good. So indeed. She used to work for the fire department, and she would tell us she loved the job. She loved it to death. She knew the ins and outs. She was taking up positions that wasn't even hers, just because she enjoyed what she was doing.
Right.
But she reached a point where she was beneath someone who mistreated her. And whenever she would come into work, she'd always have some form of altercation with this person. And at one point, she worked there. After she mentioned that, she worked there for maybe another 3 months before she finally got fed up and quit. But that's what I kind of take into consideration when I think about my mental health, because you should not have to sacrifice mental health or happiness simply because you're trying to get a paycheck. And it is, sometimes you had to kind of bear with it for a little while, but if that's genuinely not where you want to be, you have to move on, because the longer you stay there, the more frustrated you will become, the more depressed you will become, and the more you start to realize that you may have missed out on better opportunities. And when you do finally decide to move on from where it is you are, you may even be presented with better opportunities. So with that being said, whenever I've ran through a lot of jobs, I'm not gonna cap. But if them hoes suck, they suck.
Indeed.
So I at some point I reached a point where I said I would no longer settle for fast food and retail jobs, and I stopped doing that.
They weren't facilitating better opportunities.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So where I'm working now is not the most ideal, but I enjoy it.
Right.
And there isn't like a strict need for you to always be professional, I guess. You know, there ain't no strict need. Hey, you were like a minute and 30 seconds late. I'm on your ass.
Gosh.
Yeah. There ain't like, and if you find yourself being pressured, you have people that's actually there to help you. Right. That's something I look for in a work environment. When you are put in a work environment and you're thrown into circumstances you're unfamiliar with, and there are no higher ups to help you, there are no staff to help you, and you just kind of have to go on your own. You start to get frustrated. Yes. You get overwhelmed and pressured. Yes. Because you like, damn, I just got here, and I'm trying my best, but then you don't have those people there exactly to support. So you start getting frustrated because your abilities aren't up to par. Yeah. Somebody else getting frustrated because you can't perform the task given to you. Right. And then you have to take the backlash of the person frustrated with you, and now you frustrated with somebody else because you could have been already in a better position to better help this person, but you just kind of stuck. And so when I look for a job, the key things I'm looking for is good staff, good pay, and good schedule.
I think honestly that is just as important as those people that are in your circle. Right. That, because I think that's a prime example of the right people in your circle. Right. It's like those people in the workplace, those people that are there, that are helpful, that are instructional, that are exemplary. That's, again, having the right people in your circle to facilitate opportunities. Right. Facilitate growth. Facilitate that kind of, those things that prevent you from sliding into the sunken place. Right. You don't have to be in that position. And that also helps break out of, again, that cycle of I'm here because I'm defining myself by my financial worth. Right. I'm here because I feel like I gotta be what I gotta be because of the way the money stacks up. And not because I'm pursuing what I want to pursue. Because like you said, that freedom is created when you love what you're doing. When it doesn't feel like it's obligatory. Right. When you're doing it because this is what I want to do because it's giving back to me. And that then doesn't become a crucial part of your identity. Exactly. And that makes all of the difference.
And you should benefit from where you work in some form or fashion.
100%.
If you do not benefit,
Dropping gems on them.
If you benefit strictly financially, and so no, let me rephrase that. If your only benefit of going to work is simply because your bills will be paid, that's not the right job for you.
Say it.
That is not the right
Say
job.
that one more time.
If your only benefit from the job you are working at is simply to pay your bills, that is not the right job for you. There should be some other form of benefits from that job. If you go to that job and you may like, damn, this shit suck. My boss suck. Staff suck. All this shit suck.
Right.
Pay ass. That's not the job for you.
Yeah.
You got to find some form of happiness within that job. You want to be able to enjoy your coworkers.
Yep.
Like, I've seen some form of business establishment and you know, one of the coworkers may pop a joke or something, you know, and you can tell that the staff in there is really warm and really respects one another. That's the kind of environment you want, you know, when you go to work.
Yeah.
You want to be able to properly socialize with your staff. You want to be able to actually ask for a fucking off day without getting backlash or getting...
But not getting, reprimanded all the time for small stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to get... You don't want... That's not what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, mandatory positions is different.
Yeah.
You kind of held to a higher standard, so you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Absolutely.
But if you working... You got a 9-to-5 job, don't put up with no 9-to-5 bullshit. Just come on now.
I will put that on a t-shirt. My job is 9 to 5, not the bullshit.
Exactly.
I like that.
I don't put up with bullshit 9 to 5 hours.
Right.
Come on.
Crucial point there too. You have to do work that you want to do, and not if that's not just about the income.
Right.
And I know, as we've already addressed, in some cases you have to do it because the circumstances call for it. But when you can get away from it, do. Because, like you're pointing out again, and you're dropping the gems on them right now. You're dropping gems on them. Because when you go to a place, when you have that kind of environment where you want to be around those people, and there's that energy, environmental determinism, like I talked about in the other episode,
right.
When those things are there, it helps break that cycle. It prevents you from going into that space where you're like, man, what is the point? Life is terrible because you gotta ask Auntie Diane for a side job on Saturday. You gotta hit up Uncle George on Sunday for another job, and then you gotta do the other bullshit throughout the week.
You don't want to have to keep doing that.
And you get caught in that cycle. But when you go to a place and you're glad to go, and you want to be there, and you're people you want to see, and you walk in and you feel like you're doing something for yourself, it helps keep things in perspective.
Right.
This is work that I want to do, and I don't feel like I'm just doing it for the money. Even if it is something that you initially took for the money, you don't have... You break that mindset, where it's like, I'm just doing this for the monetary gain. That's great.
Yeah, man.
In closing, because this has been a fabulous conversation, are there any resting ideas, tips that you would want to leave with the young men in our peer group and anybody else who can be really thoroughly helped given the topics that we covered today?
Whatever you do in life has to have passion behind it for it to succeed. And this is a closing example. If your teacher don't enjoy her job, you won't learn shit. And that's a fact.
Come on now.
If your teacher don't enjoy her job, you suffer from that. She suffers too, just a little bit, but you suffer more.
She suffers just a little bit.
And when that teacher can learn to be, or if that teacher can find a way to be passionate in something, or if that teacher is truly passionate about teaching,
she spreads that
children,
passion.
yeah, that passion will be spread, and it'll show in her class, and it'll show in your grades.
Yeah. Then you motivate other students.
Exactly.
When they see that performance curve,
Exactly.
it becomes a pattern.
It's nothing sweeter. Well, sometimes It's nothing sweeter than knowing you're good at what you're doing and somebody comes and asks you for help, and you can successfully give them
and
a
help
good answer.
them be good at it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or just teach them.
Success would be a lonely place.
It's true.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't.
This has been another episode of Menstruction. My man Alex, I thank you for joining me in this wonderful, beautiful, productive conversation.
Don't be afraid to take risks, people.
All the time. I say that all the time. And man, thank you for really being engaged in the conversation, dropping bombs. I really, really hope people were listening, really taking notes on this one. As bombs were being dropped, you were really putting the knowledge out there for them. And so this has been another fantastic episode. I'm Black Velvet.
I'm Alex.
And you have been provided with several beneficial bricks to fortify the structure that is you incorporated.
Brick by brick.
Stone by stone. Do not let your financial status define your identity, men, please. Talk to each other. Discover your purpose.